This is the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast. I'm Dalton Gray.
And I'm Ryan Humphreys.
Broadcasting from our hometown of Fairbanks, Alaska. This show is brought to you by Stealthy Hunter. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast. This is your host today, Ryan Humphreys. Dalton is in the field guiding brown bears right now. Hopefully he'll come back with some great stories. And in the studio today, I have with me a friend of mine from work, Hunter.
Nice to be here.
Sweet, great to have you. You've got some recent hunting experiences.
I do.
We'll get into after a minute here. I haven't really been paying attention to the hunting scene across Alaska, so I don't really have any updates there, or anywhere really. I've been busy. I talked about this with Dalton on a podcast not too long ago. I keep hearing more stuff about the dire wolves or the not dire wolves.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their opinion on that. What's your thoughts on them?
I think it was a lot of hype with not a lot of stuff backing it up.
As in what?
You
don't think they're real?
I don't think they're real. I think that they're
not actual dire wolves.
Not actual dire wolves.
That's
I think
your opinions. Okay.
We'll see how it goes. I'm not terribly informed on the subject, though.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I am. I mean, I listened to a couple podcasts, so I'm just.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
I think there's, by any definition of a dire wolf, they're the closest we'll ever get.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, unless we find enough DNA and other things that they think would change, but I mean, essentially, being very uneducated on the subject, or only educated by listening to a couple of their scientists talk on podcasts about why they consider them dire wolves, is mostly, it all makes sense to me that they are. It's not like, I think saying they're not is just a easy, not necessarily that's what you're doing, but for a lot of people on the internet, saying they're not it's an easy way to get a lot of hits.
Yeah, righto.
Like, oh, well, actually, they're not because of this, and this, and everybody's got to have their own opinion.
Yeah, and it might just be pedantic jerks being like, well, technically.
Right, I mean, before the dire wolf, you know what they made, right? The woolly mouse.
I remember that.
Yeah, like, that's pretty cool, right? Because they're shooting for a woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
Which will it be a woolly mammoth? Because they're going to take the closest living relative,
I think
which is an Asian elephant.
A real good chance they could get pretty close to a woolly mammoth because we have so much intact woolly mammoth DNA.
There's more intact DNA. However, you could argue that the dire wolf is closer to the gray wolf than an Asian elephant is to a woolly mammoth.
True.
Anyway, I don't know enough to really keep talking about it. So, I guess we'll just get right into it. You came up to Alaska as pretty young?
Yeah, I was 6 years old when we moved up here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mostly remember growing up here.
Okay, that's what pretty much raised in Alaska, not quite born. But
yep.
And then you've done most of your hunting experiences up here, or would you say it's more
most
down?
Of my hunting, I'd say it's probably 60-40 in Oklahoma versus up here.
Okay.
Because we'd go down to Oklahoma every 2 years-ish to my granddad's ranch to hunt whitetail.
Okay.
And my dad hadn't gotten super into hunting yet up here, so it was mostly with my granddad.
Mostly rifle, or do some bow?
Mostly rifle. I've shot one hog with a bow.
Okay.
That's it so far.
More hogs than I've shot.
Yeah.
So. I killed one whitetail with a bow, but that's because I live in Alaska.
Yeah.
All right. Well, talk about getting into hunting up here.
First time hunting up here. I mean, when I was really little, I'd do small game hunting with a slingshot.
Okay, yep.
I'd just shoot grouse and squirrels. Yep. I got pretty good with a slingshot. I was able to cut a card at 10 meters.
Yeah, better than I could do, for sure.
I got really into it. Then first big game hunting experience up here would have been going up 40-mile hunt.
Okay.
With my dad, we rode our four-wheelers out past Central, up like Circle Hot Springs Road area. And we went up there for a weekend, just got off work and busted out there. The only thing that we saw was a lot of clouds. It was a very memorable hunt, though, because the tote that I brought that was marked sleeping bags.
Wasn't sleeping bags?
It was a thin cotton electric blanket.
Ooh. Bet you didn't have anywhere to plug in.
Did not have anywhere to plug in. So it was pretty crispy. It would have been probably 35, 36 degrees.
Okay.
And
survivable.
it was survivable. I mean,
Yeah,
I slept in my tent wrapped up in that little blanket, and
better than nothing, right?
it was better than nothing. Didn't get much sleep. Actually got more sleep later when we were trying to look for caribou,
Right,
and
yeah.
it was super foggy, and so I curled up underneath the four-wheeler on some
nice.
rocks.
There you go. Yeah. Some of that heat radiating off the engine.
Yeah. Didn't see anything. Went out next year, same hunt, different area. Didn't see anything. Rolled my four-wheeler down a real steep mountain, flipped it like 5 times.
Nice.
Bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and it
I don't
landed.
think I've heard this story.
Yeah, so the trail came up to this real steep mountain.
Okay.
And it stopped, and I was like, but what if there's caribou on
Mhm.
the other side? And my dad was like, that's really steep, Hunter. I don't think you can make it up that. And I went, I bet I can. And my dad went, okay, but take your rifle off your four-wheeler. And I was like, okay. So I pulled my rifle off my four-wheeler and threw it in 4-low with the diff lock on both of the diffs. And so it was in crawl mode, basically. And I just leaned way over the handlebars and started chugging up it. And I made it a long ways up, but then I hit a tussock wrong or something. And it got the four-wheeler just a little bit sideways, and that was the end of that. And so it started going more sideways, and I had it cranked all the way over right, and it just did not care. And so I slid off onto the mountainside of the four-wheeler and tried to hold it on, and I just started getting picked up off the mountain. I was like, well, that's that. And it went boing, 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 got a lot of airtime, and landed on its feet at the bottom mountain running.
That sounds very familiar. You heard my story?
Mm-mm.
You haven't? All right. Well, I don't know if I've told it on this podcast or not, so here goes. White Mountains, 40-mile hunt. What were you driving?
Yamaha Grizzly.
I figured it was a Grizzly, yeah. Was it a big one at the time or a smaller one?
700.
Okay, so decently big, yeah. So I still have, but my primary wheeler at the time was a 2012 Kawasaki Brute Force 750, so very comparable machines. I liked the Brute Force better than the Grizzly, but they're pretty comparable. I like the V-twin, but anyway, I was on a trail on a nice gravel flat carved out of the side of a hill trail, and I had a little issue with my front end. I still don't know exactly what it was, if it was CV joints or whatever, where I'd get a random little jerk to the left or right on the handlebars. And as long as I was holding on to it, it wasn't a big deal. I could control it and it was fine. But I had stopped with the group I was with, and they were ahead of me, to talk to them for a second, and we got moving again, and I was like, oh, I want to drink a coffee. And so I took my hands off the handlebars, let the wheeler roll forward, and in the process of that, getting my coffee cup out, taking a drink while it was just kind of rolling, it did its thing, or I bumped the handlebars, and then I bumped the throttle at the same time, putting my coffee cup away. And it crawled up the bank on the left. I jumped off, and it went down the hill, probably flipped 5 times. Rifle was on the wheeler. I had just bought a tablet that was in my bag on the wheeler, brought it, so I had some big maps, And I just watched it go side over side, basically. And every time I'd go over, stuff was looser and would slam back to the wheel. I could see the rifle come, one side stayed on, it came up and would get smacked back down on the wheeler. And anyway, it landed upright and running. Handlebars were smashed down.
Yep,
all
same.
the racks were smashed down.
Yep.
But I walked down to it, picked up stuff on the way. Was able to pull the handlebars back up into place. They rotated in their mount.
Little hinge socket. Yep.
And then packed everything back on the wheeler and caught up with everybody, and was like, yeah, rolled the wheeler down the mountain, no big deal. Let's keep hunting. And then I was like, I need to shoot my rifle, make sure it's still on. So I had just bought the rifle. It was a garage sale special.
Nice.
I had maybe $300 into it, probably including the scope. It was an old Savage 300 Win Mag, and I bought it at a garage sale, took it home, cleaned it up, painted it. Still had the original stock on it. I had to buy a mag for it. So I think with the mag and the rifle itself, I had like $300. And I think another $100 in the scope, probably. It was a Redfield. And anyway, so I had not a lot of money. What was a really accurate rifle. And so I said at some point, all right, I need to stop and shoot this gun. Mm-hmm. So we stopped. And I just picked, found some rocks to set up on, found a rock to shoot at, a little white rock. And I shoot. And I have one buddy next to me and his buddy standing behind me. And the buddy next to me goes, "You didn't hit anywhere near it. You hit right here." And he's like pointing down at the ground way close. Like, no way. But come on. No, I didn't. That's not where I'm aiming. Maybe I'm mixed up when I'm looking at the scope and I shoot again. And it's the same thing. And the other guy that's standing behind me, he kind of comes sideways and he goes, "Your barrel's bent."
Oh, no.
And sure enough, if you actually look at the rifle, the barrel went, "Ooh."
Oh.
So that was the end of that one. I'm just glad it wasn't a brand new teak or brand new anything for that matter.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
But that was my flipping four. I didn't know you had a nice mountain rolling four-wheeler story.
Yeah, I mean, it was all the racks were bent, handlebars, same story. Had to pull them back out. The racks had bent so far down that it was jamming the plastics of the fenders into the wheels, and I had to take my knife and cut the plastic.
Oh, is that what you did?
Yeah.
I was able to ride mine back to our campsite that night. And what I did was we were camped by some big trees. So I took a ratchet strap or a come along or something that I had with me, and I hooked to the corner of the rack, tied it up to the big tree, and then jumped on the wheeler rack and got them to straighten back out so that it wasn't pushing my plastics down.
Nice.
And if you look at my wheeler rack, it still has the kinks.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. That I need to. That wheeler's been sitting on a trailer for about a year now because it's got electrical issues. But
gremlins.
Yeah, that keeps blowing stators. Keeps frying stators. So I don't know if it's got a bad grounding issue or what, but
don't know what a stator is.
It's the ATV motorcycle equivalent of a alternator.
Okay, right. Yeah.
It actually sits in an oil bath and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, I've replaced it 3 times and it's blown it every time. So I think I decided that the issue isn't the stator. Because they will go out.
Yeah.
Right. They will short out. If they get too hot and oil gets in on the coil, they'll short out. But anyway. Well, that's it. So you that was your first big hunt up here?
Yeah, I was doing the 40 mile.
Very memorable.
Yeah. Right. That was the second time we ran up there.
Okay.
That was the next year. Didn't see a single caribou. So, and then the next year I went, just ran up Thursday night. Took off work about 10 p.m., made it up there about 2 a.m., rode my four-wheeler up in the mountains, slept under a rock.
Opening day?
No, it was
just a weekend.
Just a weekend. Season? The first weekend of the season, though.
Oh, okay. Sometimes it opens on a weekend, so.
Yeah, it opened, I think, the day before.
Oh, okay.
So it was close to opening day. This time we were seeing people coming out with caribou, so I was getting a little excited. Slept for maybe 2 hours, woke up at like 5 a.m. and just started riding my four-wheeler looking because it was starting to get light. Saw a couple cows, didn't really see much else for the rest of the day. My wife came up Friday night, and then all of Saturday we hunted together, and we saw a group of 15 or 18 maybe cows that were coming towards us, and no bulls. And my wife was having fun. She was like, I'm going to go home now. I was like, okay, I'm going to be out here till Sunday night. And so Sunday morning I woke up and I went out, instead of going towards would have been the south side of the Steese Highway, went up the north side and saw a couple guys who'd made some fresh kills, hadn't seen any caribou, and I was out chatting with this older fellow who he'd forgotten his binoculars, and so we were just he'd been up there a lot more than I had, and so he was sharing some experiences, and I was glassing and pointing things out. And then I look over and I see what looks like a group of maybe, I think it was about 5 or 6 decent-sized bulls. And I was like, there's a group of bulls over there, and he takes his rifle scope and looks at them, and he was like, oh yeah, that looks, there's some pretty good ones in there. And so then we take our four-wheelers and sort of ride the back side of the ridges along to get as close as we can. and I get up there first, and I get down and I start waiting for him, and then as he comes up, he kind of spooks him a little bit, and they all hop up and start running. And he told me that if I had a shot, take the shot, and I was wanting to wait for him because, obviously it'd just be nice. And so they started running over off the backside of the hill into the BLM land where you can't ride your four-wheeler to them. And so I was like, okay, I guess that's that. And so I took a shot, and I'd ranged him at about 225 yards, and it was running, and so I had accidentally spined him. And so it went down immediately, obviously.
It's cool. It feels cool when that happens.
It does feel cool. I was like, oh man, excellent shot.
Yeah.
I've done so good. And so I'm waiting for the guy to come up, and I see my bull start to try to get up again. I'm like, oh no. Yeah. And so I'd shoot him again in the neck, and he flops back over, and that was that. And the guy came up, and there was still maybe enough of a shot, and he was like, not worth it for me. I'll get another one some other time. Oh. And so went down there, and first time skinning out an animal by myself. I mean, I've done whitetail in Oklahoma.
It was the same thing, just bigger.
Same thing, just bigger. With the whitetail, though, we had this next to all the cattle pens where it was basically a gantry crane where we'd winch it up by the neck.
And then clean it.
And then we'd just make a little incision around the neck, skin it down just a little bit, put a rock in the hide, and take a truck and hook it up and just heal it with the truck. It was a fair bit different. And so he gave me a couple pointers on if I didn't really care about saving the hide, just going at it from the top down and peel around.
Is that how you did it?
Yeah.
Did you like it that way?
Yeah, it seemed a lot easier.
I've done one caribou that way, and I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
No, I've done it. You'll do that. Actually, you do that if you care about the hide, like for a shoulder mount.
Okay, righto.
But otherwise, it's a lot more work, and you get a lot more hair on your meat that way.
Okay, that's good to know.
But all right. Well, so that was your one big game animal in the state.
Yeah, that was. And
you've done some moose hunting and whatnot.
I did some moose hunting. Went out last year down into a little bit south of Tanana. Didn't see anything. Did not bring nearly enough food.
See, my problem has been that I don't bring enough, or I bring too much.
Oh yeah.
But on like a wheeler, any kind of wheeler or truck hunt, it's just like, oh yeah, just rock. You go to the store and everything that looks good, you throw in the cart, and then you spend way too much money, and you end up with snacks, But I've been working on getting. I say, sheep hunting has helped me get to a point where I'm much better at deciding what I need and don't need. Right. Just because I have 3 thermocells and 3 jet boils and 50 cans of fuel in a tote doesn't mean I need to throw the whole tote on the wheeler.
Yeah.
Like, I need 1 thermocell, 1 jet boil, right? If I'm taking the family out, maybe 2 thermocells and 2 jet boils, right? But
yeah, I decided that since I generally only eat about 1 meal a day, all I needed was 1 Mountain House a day. And
that's not
made
great.
some hardtack.
Yeah.
And I'm about 3 days in, I'm like, man, I feel like my belly button's rubbing on my backbone. And I look at the Mountain House and, oh yeah, the whole package has got 350 calories in it.
My biggest gripe with Mountain House is this really small meals.
Yeah.
Like, they have a place, but I love Peak Refuel because they've got actual like 1,000+ calorie meals.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, well,
most of their meals are like 800+ calories. Some of them are over 1,000, and with a high protein, high fat.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better than Mountain House.
And good meals too. I mean, Mountain House is good, and I don't have an issue with Mountain House specifically, but like when it comes to the meals, like I'm gonna go with Peak because
you need more calories.
For big meals, and maybe I'll pick out some Mountain House breakfast or something like that. I usually do a breakfast and a lunch, or a breakfast and a dinner, and then snacks for lunch.
Yeah.
Dalton likes just snacks for breakfast, but I prefer a bigger breakfast, and then I don't eat as much for lunch. But anyway, yeah. So your recent bear kill.
Yep.
This is appropriate time we talk about that. It's bear season. Everything's moving really late. Bear bait wise, as far as anybody I've talked to has had everything, at least here in the interior. Stuff's moving really late. You're not bear baiting at all this year.
No, I'm not.
Time and money.
Yeah, time and money.
Yeah. But you've been getting out, spending some time looking.
Yep.
And one thing that you're doing, at a little bit of older age than I did is you're putting the hours in, just in the time in and getting out and learning.
Yeah.
And it'll start to pay its dividends in a few years.
Yeah.
You really start to see that. But you want to start the story however you want to start it?
Yeah. So, I mean, my wife and I drive down to Anchorage once a month at least.
Okay.
Her father lives down there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
go visit him every month and just drive down there. And so whenever it's any sort of hunting season, just bring my rifle.
Bring your rifle. Bring your gear. Yeah, I do the same thing.
Might as well. So just the weekend before this happened, I'd run up Birch Creek and with my little boat and ran 62 miles up Birch Creek and saw one minuscule black bear.
Okay.
I thought it was a cub. Turns out I'd talked to a fellow who does a lot of hunting in that area, and he says, I showed him some pictures of it because I got some really good video because it popped out maybe 5 yards away from me.
Nice.
He said, wasn't a cub, probably got kicked out from its mom year prior.
Yeah, last spring.
But,
yeah.
I mean, I could have picked it up with one hand. It was small.
Wow. So a cub.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Essentially a cub. I wasn't going to shoot it,
They're
even if I
usually
had
super
known
friendly.
it was
Well, I say
technically
friendly.
legal.
Like you get those things coming into a bait, and like they don't care you're there.
Yeah.
They're not very educated yet.
Yeah. It popped out and looked at me, and it was super interested, running around. It looked like a cub. I wasn't going to shoot it regardless. Anyways, only saw that. Got basically no sleep that weekend because it was 8 or 9 hours upriver and then a long ways back and a lot of stopping and hunting and glassing and stuff. Anyways, didn't see anything other than the cub. And then Memorial Day weekend, Friday night, get off work, throw some stuff in the car, drive down to see father-in-law. And so I throw my rifle in the car, and my wife's like, "Oh, do you really need to bring that?" I was like, it's bear season. Might as well. If I see something, I'll see something. Shoot it. She was like, "Oh, okay." I've never seen a bear on the parks before, and I was like,
I've known multiple people shoot bears on the parks.
"Oh, yeah."
Yeah.
Yeah, we just haven't before. I've seen 3 or 4 on the Rich.
Okay.
But never on the parks. But, hey, might as well.
Yeah.
So
if you don't bring it, then
if you don't bring it, that's when you see them.
Yeah.
That's when you see them. So we're heading down, just get through Healy, sort of between Healy and Cantwell, just past Carlo Creek. And we come around this bend, and lo and behold, there's a grizzly bear up on this bank, just digging at roots, eating stuff. And so my wife pulls over, and we're looking at it. And I'm like, I think I'm going to shoot it. And she goes, really?
Yeah.
But where are we going to put it? And I go, well, you've got the rubber mats in the back of your car, don't you? And she's like, well, yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this, it's like a Ford Expedition, Ford Explorer. It's like the SUV built on the F-150 platform. Parked with a bunch of people with real long zoom lenses poking out, taking pictures. And so I don't want to be the jerk that just shows up, breaks out the rifle, shoots the bear while everybody's trying to take pictures of it. And so I get out my rifle, and I walk across the road, and I walk up, and there's a lady hanging her head out, and I say, hey, just let me know when y'all are done taking pictures. I don't want to, like, ruin you guys' experience or anything. And she goes, why? And I go, well, because I'm going to shoot the bear. And she goes, don't shoot the bear. And then another guy pokes that out and says, don't shoot the bear, man. And I go, well, I'm going to shoot the bear, but I want to make sure you guys get as many photos as you like.
Right,
I'm not
right.
trying to be a jerk. And they sort of like mean mug me, glare at me, and then poke their heads back in and just keep taking pictures. And so I stand there and wait and wait and wait. And 15, 20 minutes go by. The bear's still just up there doing whatever. It does not care about any of the people. And there's a couple cars that were there that left, and more cars have pulled up on the other side, and they're taking photos and whatever. I'm still sitting here waiting next to this Ford Explorer. Because it's parked off the shoulder, and I'm standing in the ditch towards like the taillight end of it. And so they're eventually they stop taking pictures, and I can just see them like batting mosquitoes in their car, and they've still got the windows down. And then one guy sticks his hand out of the window with an air horn and goes, and I go, hey, you guys know that's technically illegal to try to scare game away from hunters. And he goes, well, you're technically a meep. And so I just sort of sit there and look at him. And then he goes, the driver turns around and goes, I think I'm going to throw my truck in reverse and run you over. And I go, oh, okay. And so at this point, they'd sort of exhausted my patience. Like, there's a couple people who are yelling, trying to scare the bear away. And one person on the other side of the road is like laid on their horn. And so I'm like, I'm about done with this. And he actually throws the truck in reverse. And I go, and so I walk down into the ditch, into the willows, and shoot the bear. And at that point, all hell breaks loose. It takes off running like full sprint, makes it 7 steps up the bank, and then just collapses and rolls back down. People are shrieking and screaming, and all sorts of very, very, very colorful language is being applied to me. At some point, maybe in the next 30 seconds, the truck that was closest to me speeds away. The people in the cars across the road, I think somebody who was out of their car like threw a rock at me, because there's something that comes and thunks it kind of close to me.
Yeah.
The people are just screaming like, "You coward! Why would you do that?" All sorts of stuff. There's one. My wife told me later that there was one young woman, probably in her like 20s, early 20s, who was just sobbing, just tears streaming down her face, and she'd every once in a while poke her head up close to the partially rolled down window to just say like, "You should be embarrassed," just all sorts of stuff. And I was facing away from the road at this point, and I just did not even have any interest in trying to engage with these people. Because I figured that, I don't know, they clearly weren't in a mindset to try to understand another viewpoint. So I just faced away, and as the bear had started, it ran off, and I was starting to rack another round in my gun, because when I took the shot, I was maybe 10 yards away from the bear. If that, it was really, really close to me. And so I took the shot and started racking another one in as I'm like stepping back a little bit away from the bear, because I don't know
what he's gonna
if
do.
it's going to wheel around or if it's going to pop back up after it's laid down, rolled down that dealie. And so anyways, I'm standing a little bit closer, and there's rocks and everything. And just the sheer amount of hatred that I could feel, and just it was pretty rough. Anyways, bear didn't get back up. It was, I later saw that it was sort of seemed like I'd punctured it through like the lower lobes of both lungs and the heart.
Oh, yeah.
If I could see, it was
dead.
It was dead. It was dead real quick. It maybe lived like 4 seconds after I shot it, if that. Anyways, so there's lots of screaming and yelling for the next 5, 6, 7 minutes. Time was a little wonky at that point.
Yeah, you're just like...
just sort of zoned in on the bear, watching it to make sure it's not going to get up or anything, and and trying to tune out everything that's behind me. It seems like most of the people leave. There's one or two trucks that stay, or I say trucks, vehicles that just stay. And there's one person who's just like videoing me. Apparently, my wife told me. And then one guy pulls up and he starts talking to my wife and he's like, "Dang, did he shoot a bear?" And my wife's been sort of fielding all of these people who've been very, very angry. And my wife goes, "Yes, he shot a bear." And he goes, "That's awesome. What kind?" And she goes, "Well, he shot a grizzly." He was like, "That's super cool, man. Does he want help getting it back to the truck or back to the car?" And she was like, "Well, yeah, I think he probably would." And so he comes over and he's wearing a real nice button down, slacks, and like leather loafers. And he hops in the willows with me because at this point I'd come up to the bear and was I was just gonna skin it out right where it lay because I mean I felt like the willows kind of protected me a little bit from the amount of angry people.
Right.
And so he helps me drag it out back to the car, and my wife pulled the car around and onto the close side of the road. So we drag it up into the ditch and a little ways up the ditch. And he was like, "Do you want me to help you throw it in the car?" And I was like, "No, I'll just clean it out here," because I was going to do my best not to make a giant mess of my wife's car. And so he was like, "Well, is that all I can do for you?" I was like, "Yeah, thank you very much for your help. I really appreciate it."
Yeah.
I don't think he realized how much I appreciated
Somebody showing
it.
up, having some support. Yeah.
Yeah, it was rough. Anyways, and so I start scanning it out, and there's at least I think one vehicle that's still up there, and they're like really mean mugging us. And so at that point, I'm like, and my wife goes, do you want to just throw it in the car and like drive a little ways down the road just to not be around all these people?" Because I mean, I'd gotten death threats and somebody said he was going to run me over. And I was like, "Yeah, probably." And so we had to drag it up to the car, and I tried to just lift it into the car by the paws at first, and I can barely get it up. And so then I like go on and full on bear hug it and just flump it into the back of it's a hybrid RAV4, and throw it in there. And we drive down past Cantwell a little ways to like a little creek, and I pull it out of the car and spend the next 2.5 hours skinning it with my pocket knife.
Didn't even bring a knife. Gotta have a kill kit with you, man.
Yeah, I had a kill kit in my backpack, but then the knife that was on it was on my belt loop the previous weekend, and I'd forgotten to put it back in. So
I lost my favorite bear skinning knife last spring. I had no idea what happened to it.
I lost my pocket knife skinning that bear. I had no idea where it is.
How'd you feel about your skinning job?
I called one of our friends on the way down there who's killed a lot of bears, and I mean I'd started the first paw down in the ditch, and I kind of botched that a little bit because I didn't quite follow where the hairline sort of meets up. I missed that a little bit, but then everything else I think I did pretty good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then got the skin off. Just took the head off with the skin. Cut off at the wrists.
Yeah, that's usually what I do too, just so you can work on all that later.
Yeah. Quartered it out, took the back straps off, dragged the carcass way out in the woods, threw everything in the back of my wife's car. She'd sort of gotten the mat a little bit cleaned up at that point, and I go, okay, I'm going to throw everything back in. She goes, okay. So, more bloody bear goes back into the car, and we make it all the way back down to Anchorage, and by the time we roll into her dad's place, it's 5 a.m.
Nice.
And so I didn't have like a fleshing knife or anything, and I was thinking I was going to flesh it out myself, and I didn't have ice or anything. And so I'm like, I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm going to wake up and go to Cabela's and get a couple of things I need, get a cooler, get some ice. Right. And so I slept for 2 hours till Cabela's opened, and went there and got a cooler and some supplies, and came back and skinned out the face of the bear. Pardon me. Cleaned up all the meat and stuff. Because it still got some hair and dirt on it and stuff. Got all that taken care of, and I was thinking I was going to try to flesh it out myself and skin out the paws, but it was a really hot day, and I didn't really have a good spot to hang up this hide to dry or anything. And so I just decided to take it into the taxidermist there.
Okay.
He was open, and I called him, and he said, "Yeah, I can seal it for you and everything." And I was like,
"Oh, cool,
perfect." And so just took it in to him.
We don't have a lot of taxidermists in Fairbanks that do that.
Yeah,
I think we might have a few, but And my dad's a taxidermist. He doesn't do a lot anymore, but he never did the ceiling or anything, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Cool. So are you having him do anything with it besides just tan it, or?
Oh, and I'm gonna have him rug it out.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's a pretty penny.
Yeah. It's like $3,400
Even for that little of a bear, really.
Yeah, he said it squared out. He measured it. He said it
Okay.
squared out just like a couple inches under 6 foot.
Oh, that's not
So
too bad.
it's not terrible.
Small for a grizzly, but not bad for a first bear.
No, yeah.
Not
It was
bad at
a
all.
blonde sow. It was a really pretty hide.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Sent me pictures.
pretty. Anyways, brought all the meat back up, made some tacos with a backstrap. It's delicious. I've heard people say some negative things about Grizzly. That one was good.
Good. I have heard, and I think we've talked about it on here. I've eaten some interior and northern grizzly, and it was great.
Yeah.
I've had some grizzly on the or brown bear on the islands. Not so good.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible with a particular bear. It was a fall bear, but it wasn't super. It was not great. It was a pretty young bear as well. Actually, for there, it was really small. I think it may have been just a little bit bigger than the one you shot. Like, it was not a big bear.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I didn't
for
shoot
a coastal. That's
yeah, for a
fair bit
coastal, it was
smaller.
quite small. But it wasn't great. We ate some backstrap and it was pretty tough. But from what I've heard is interior grizzlies, northern grizzlies, as long as they're not eating fish and rotten meat, they're good.
Yeah.
Like if they're eating blueberries, and a lot of them eat a lot of blueberries too. Like as long as the meat doesn't stink when you're skinning it, then you don't. Then you can pretty reliably it's going to be good meat.
Yeah.
And so I plan on, if I kill a grizzly this spring, keeping it if it smells good.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice thing about grizzlies here is you don't have to keep the meat. You can kill them to save moose and keep the hide. But
Yeah, I was glad that I didn't have to worry about wanton waste
right.
restrictions, trying to like get all the rib cage and everything.
right, well, it's
off.
June now, so you don't even have to worry about black bears, right? I
Yeah, I
always
think-
eat black bear meat, but
Yeah, I think June is the cutoff for
Yeah,
black bears.
yeah.
So
well, I mean, if in on the coast, they're pretty bad there too. The black
Yeah.
bears even down there. But did you have him measure the skull for you or anything?
I hadn't no.
No.
I'm gonna have him save the skull. So I'll.
Is he
measure
gonna
it when I get it back.
bleach it for
He's
you?
gonna
and everything?
bleach it and pressure wash it. I was gonna have it beetled. He was like, the only difference is the honeycomb inside the
Yeah.
nose, and it's gonna be a lot cheaper to pressure wash. And I was like,
Okay. What
pressure wash
did he
it.
say for price difference on those? Just out of curiosity.
I didn't ask him.
Okay. So there is a guy in town. What's his name? What's his company name? I don't remember. Something beetling.
Hanging dead beetling.
Hanging Dead Beetling. Yeah. He's pretty awesome.
Mhm.
And he does a lot of work and does good work. I mean, my dad does them too. But I actually just got the skull back from my dad for my
Nice.
big bear last year. It was
Nice.
19 and a half inches on a black bear. I may never
That's
beat
pretty
that.
good. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Well, what? So you'd never do that in that situation again? You don't think?
Never. It was rough.
Well, I'm putting your wife through dealing with all those.
Yeah,
people.
that's.
I mean, she is HR.
she is HR at work. But yeah, that's who I feel the most bad for is my wife, because she's not a super big hunter. She supports me in hunting.
It's cool that she goes with you. Like, it
Yeah.
goes out with you.
She
when
will.
You go
Yeah, she
hunting.
will come out with me and stuff. But she felt sad for the bear when I shot it.
Yeah.
She's got a big heart. And so people were asking like, why would he do that? And she was like, I don't know.
I don't know. I married him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when she was telling me about it later, right after I'd shot it, people were screaming like, "Who shot the bear? Who shot the bear? Was it that truck? Was it that truck?" And she slowly raises her hand, and they look at her, and she's wearing like a Disney sweatshirt with Disney sweatpants and a little Disney hat, and she's standing next to the hybrid RAV4,
Right.
and they're like, "What? Why would he do that?"
Yeah.
And
yeah, nice.
it just, yeah.
Wow.
And she got a lot of flack for that, but I think she got a lot less flack than she would have if she'd been.
I'll keep an eye out on the Sierra Club for a video of a Just a terrible hunter in
I've
Alaska shooting a
been
grizzly bear.
pretty regularly searching for finding.
It might
some
show up
information.
somewhere.
I think it probably will.
Then you can sue him
at
for
some
putting your
point.
face on the internet, right?
I actually don't think my face would be on the internet
You don't think
because
so?
I pretty much
You just ignored them after.
I pretty much ignored them the whole time they were there because I mean, I did my best to not be a jerk about it. 'Cause
You thought you did your best.
I thought
yeah.
I did. I mean, I've
From any other Alaskan's perspective, they would have been like, "Oh yeah, I've got my pictures. Go ahead."
yeah, I mean, I've had a similar situation happen to me before when I was the person looking at. We'd had some family up, and we were looking at a moose in a pond, and it was September, and it wasn't a super big bull. It was on the Richardson though. We're looking at this moose in a pond and taking lots of pictures, and these two guys roll up, dig around the back of their truck a little bit, pull out a gun, and pop.
They just shot it.
Moose doesn't go down. Pop. Moose doesn't go down. You can see the impacts on the moose, and they're not necessarily a very good shot. I don't know if they were poor shots or if their rifle wasn't very sighted in.
Or both. Usually those go together.
Yeah. Pop. And finally goes down right in the middle of the pond.
What did they shoot it with? Do you know?
I don't know. It seemed...
Match great. Something that was passing through, probably. The fact that the moose didn't react.
Maybe. I don't know. It did not care for a while.
Huh. Interesting.
Finally flopped over in the middle of the pond. And then we were watching them, and they were standing around for like 15 minutes trying to decide who was going to wade out / maybe even swim out into the pond to hook up a rope to the moose to get it back.
Pull it out. Well, at least they had their truck there to pull it out with.
Yeah.
So I guess that's not that bad of a shoot a moose in a pond if you can get to it, tie a rope to it.
Yeah.
And with the truck, you know.
And then eventually one guy went in there with just waded up, and he was up to his neck in the water to drag it out. But
were you kicking yourself at the time? Too young to care?
I was much too young to care. I was maybe like 18 or not 18. I was 12 or something.
Okay.
I was pretty young.
Okay.
And we didn't have any guns with us, right?
Yeah. Wasn't really even on your radar at the time.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I mean, we had friends with us, not from the state or not from Alaska, and
they're like,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if they mentioned it, let us take our pictures, but
right.
I mean, whatever.
There's a lot of people up here that don't care, though.
Yeah.
Which isn't always a great thing, but so there's a lot of people talk about the fact that hunting is on the chopping block in a lot of places, right? I mean, we've seen in Washington not too long ago they shut down bear hunting almost completely.
Yeah.
Right. For no good reason. It was just very political. People didn't like it, so they shut it down. We see places where grizzlies maybe should be able to be hunted in the States because their populations have reached what they wanted, and they haven't reopened hunting for grizzlies at all. Wolves, we've seen the same thing. Some places they have opened hunting for wolves, but in a lot of places they haven't let them, even though the wolves are far past any standard of being what they should, the population being met. They've well exceeded, and now they're killing far more than they should be able to. And, well, when you're hunting wolves is not a very successful endeavor.
No,
but, so
there's a lot of backlash. Even in those places
because there is something I do not understand it. I try to sometimes, and I get a little ways into it, I guess. But I do not understand the infatuation the public has with the non-hunting public has with predators. My dad had a friend growing up whose wife would not let him trap wolves. He was a trapper. She didn't mind that he trapped. He hunted moose. He was very much an Alaskan. He wasn't really a big bear hunter, I don't think. But other than that, he was very much a hunting, trapping Alaskan. But she did not want him killing wolves. She worshipped wolves, basically. And so if my dad got a wolf, it's like, well, just don't tell anybody, don't tell her, right?
Yeah.
Because they were shared trap lines and stuff.
Okay,
and she didn't really seem to have a problem with my dad getting one. She just didn't want her husband killing one. I don't really know.
It's sort of a principle.
Whatever it was. I don't understand. People there's a romanticism to them. I think there's a lot of Native American culture. Isn't it crazy what they've done to us? When I was a kid, I would have said Indians, right? But now we say Native American.
Technically it's First Peoples now.
Is it really First Nations?
Yeah, First Nations, First Peoples.
Yeah, we don't know who the First Nations were because they were killed by somebody else that came after them. No, that's a different topic altogether. Not really what this podcast covers.
No.
But anyway, I'll go back to the politics of 10 years ago. Native Americans, and there was a lot of worship of wolves, bears, ancestor worship, right? They did this they cohabitated with them. They felt like they would only kill a bear if they needed the fat for the winter, that kind of thing, right? And so I think some of it maybe perhaps comes from that. Predators, if you look at just the general population of animals across Europe in general, very different than the way they've been managed. Here we had an issue of and this also maybe where some of it came from. If there were wolves and they were killing livestock, you just shot all the wolves. And the justification for it was, well, we're the new predators on the landscape. And there is some truth to that. I don't believe it means you should wipe out the wolves. I do think it means you should kill a bunch of them so that it keeps the population balance under control. If you're both hunting, right?
You're going to be putting more pressure on your ungulate species.
I think that's much of the problem we have with sheep today.
I think so.
We killed a lot of wolves in the 50s and 60s. Sheep populations exploded. Hunting exploded. And sheep populations have dwindled as predator populations have increased. And there's obviously more to it. Hard winters, perhaps cycles that we maybe don't even completely understand of, it could be a long cycle like caribou cycle, right? Although, why were the caribou numbers so high at the same time the sheep numbers were high? Because we killed a lot of wolves.
Yeah. I think that...
And bears.
There's a very multifactorial aspect to it, but also it's fairly simple on paper, at least, to see that.
There is a direct correlation.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, the public has this worship of predators. They don't really seem to care. Sure, there are those that do, but people don't really seem to care that you deer hunt, that you moose hunt, whatever. No, you moose hunt, great. I think there's a little different with the granola crunchers in Alaska. They don't really seem to care a lot. I mean, some of them probably do some, but not enough to, to have a problem with you doing it. Great example is one of my bear baits that I've been setting up this year. I've set up this year, and I've checked twice since I set it up. It's so tomorrow. I'll probably be checking it tomorrow night. The first night I went out there to put it up this year, or the first week, it was Saturday evening. And I ran out there to put it in, and when I pull up, there's a guy walking back where I park from where I ride in, and holding just a camera. And I had seen his little truck parked a little ways back, and he goes, "Oh, hey, are you putting in a bear bait?" I said, "Yep." And he goes, "Okay. Have you baited in here before?" I said, "Yeah, I've baited in here several years." "Okay." He walked on. I thought, maybe I should get his name. Seemed like a nice guy. Yeah. Didn't think much more of it, and then went out there, checked another week. Completely no bears yet. Like I said, it's been a late season. And then I went last weekend. I pull up and this truck's there again, and it's interesting because I've never seen anybody else even park in this spot. That's why I like it so much. I've seen other people ride the area from other access points, and they ride in and say, "There's nothing here," and they turn around. There's not really anything there, even for joyriders, right? They ride the hill and they look at it, and whatever. Other than that, I haven't seen anybody in there. Well, his truck's there, and I can see him up on the trail, kind of a ways, and at one spot where you can see further up, and he's kind of a ways. So I'm unloading my stuff, and he walks up, and he goes, "Hi." I say hi, and he walks out, and I'm like kicking myself again. I didn't get his name. Like, who is this guy? But he had his a backpack and a camera again, so I don't know what he's in there doing with a backpack and a camera. No gun or anything that I could tell. I mean, he may have had a sidearm for protection or something, but there's a lot of those types up here. Yeah. But he had zero problem with me bear baiting.
It's just another aspect of life up here.
It is, and people understand it. And I think, there's a lot of liberals, very social liberals, who own guns.
Yeah.
In the state, I say in the state, yes, in the city, in the interior.
I think I've looked at
Anchorage
the
has skewed further and further away from that.
Yeah, the Anchorage isn't really it's a suburb of Seattle.
When I was younger and we would travel as a family down there and back, I remember coming back one time and one of my younger siblings saying, "Are we back in Alaska yet?"
Yep.
Yeah.
I've looked at the statistics, and the Alaska has the highest rate of gun ownership among Democratic voters
Oh, okay.
of any state.
Well, I can imagine.
It makes sense. I mean, that's just
This was an old number. I don't know if it's still true. I don't even know if it can be corroborated from when it was. But I saw a list of like 4 or 5 top counties in the country, gun ownership per person, and the Fairbanks North Star Borough was the second top. And then there was like one in Texas or something that was number 1 for gun ownership per person, right?
for sure.
And that's the ones they know about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I have a few guns that are on some owner list that like there's some piece of paper somewhere saying that I bought it, right? There's no registry up here. Some conspiracy theorists would have you believe differently, but far as
They're going to collect the
as
information they collect.
they collect information and it sits in the store until
something happens.
Until something happens, and it has to be traced back from the weapon itself. It can't be traced to you, which is great. Anyway, that's another topic for another time. But overall, Alaska has a hunting culture and a gun culture, even more so than the rest of the U.S. has. And the U.S. has a gun culture that so much more than the rest of the world has.
Certainly.
It's like 100% more than the next country with the most guns per person. And the next country with most guns per person is Yemen, I believe. Which makes sense.
That does make sense.
They shoot and kill each other a lot over there. A lot more than we do, actually.
Yeah.
But, so I can understand where you're coming from thinking, hey, there's some people shoot, and they're a little upset at me, but
You
didn't expect
I did not expect the amount of backlash that I experienced because and my wife, as we were sitting
really
there,
got the brunt of it.
She didn't get quite. I wouldn't say the brunt of it. We probably split it 50-50.
Okay.
She didn't deserve any of it.
Right.
Which is really the.
That's part of marriage. That's part of marriage, but
yeah, but she didn't deserve any of it. I mean, they were all yelling at me. They were screaming some of the worst obscenities I've ever heard at me. It was rough. And I mean, as we pulled up, my wife said, like,
that's saying something because I know some of the people you work with.
Yeah. 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 But as we pulled up and we're sitting there, my wife was like, they're going to be really mad at you. And I go, no, they're not. I've seen this happen before. Like, it was fine.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, look at their cameras. They're going to be really mad at you. And I go, my mom has a camera like that. Like, that's normal.
Yeah.
It's not normal. And she was right, as wives tend to be.
From time to time.
And yeah, given that situation again, I just keep on driving.
You just drive past.
Unless it
or,
was...
park,
take a couple photos.
Take some photos, act like everybody else when everybody leaves, then you shoot it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I had much hope of everybody leaving because at that point it was like...
No, I mean, not when you tell anybody.
Oh,
but like pull up, sit in your vehicle, wait, give it an hour, see if you've got a moment with nobody there. Yeah. Where you can hopefully be in the side of the road skinning it when they pull up and then they don't really notice.
They're not
They might come over and throw rocks at you anyway, but
who knows?
At least they didn't watch you shoot a bear and they watched it die and have to cry.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously it gives sort of a negative... I don't think what I did was unethical.
No, it was not.
Or, because, I mean, the bear died extremely quickly.
Right. It was not an unethical hunt.
Mm-mm.
Potentially an unethical situation.
From a standpoint of
an Alaskan, you don't see it that way.
Yeah, but from a standpoint of like suffering caused, I definitely caused a lot of suffering to those tourists, and I feel really bad about that.
Yeah, I think so. I would even come into the defense of you and say a lot of that is self-inflicted, or on themselves, because of they've chosen to believe they have a certain set of beliefs that, well, for you and I certainly don't agree with. I don't think most Alaskans do either. Anyway, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, none of them seemed like vegans, and I think it would have.
What do you mean by that?
None of
granola crunchers,
but like none of them seemed like none of them had the build of somebody or the demeanor of somebody.
They didn't look like a bunch of Harvard, a bunch of liberal college students
who would be like vegan and like fully into like
They weren't waving rainbow flags. You didn't get that impression.
No,
because those are what's known as the crazy people in this country now. Right?
But like if they had been like very overtly like, I think I saw McDonald's bag in one of the cars.
Okay.
And in the car that I walked past when Internet was interacting with the most. And I as I was walking up, I'd heard they'd mentioned that they were something about like, you won't see this in Florida. So I think they were from Florida. But I would have understood it more if they were vegans. Because
I understand what you're coming from now.
Because
vegans are vegetarians because they don't like killing. And
then it's at least a consistent viewpoint.
Yeah.
We might not share the same values, but if we did share the same values, we could come to the same conclusion. Right. And I still don't quite understand it, and I just think maybe they didn't realize I was going to eat it. Maybe they thought I was just killing it for the trophy value, but it wasn't a massive bear.
So I think this comes back to this inordinate misplaced worship of predators. Of big game predators, right? Coyotes don't get it. The coyotes don't really get it, right? Unless you're PETA, you don't care about coyotes. Because what do coyotes do? They come in your neighborhood and kill your dog.
Kill your dog, kill your calves, coyotes are...
Why do coyotes come into your neighborhood and kill your dog? Well, because you let the deer overpopulate, because you shut down the deer hunting, and now there's deer in your backyard and that attracted coyotes. That's another topic, but that's happening in some places in California, actually. Yeah. But there is an inordinate worship of predators, and so how dare you shoot this cuddly little bear, right?
Yeah,
that's how they see it. They don't think of this as a, they see it's a beautiful creature and it works with nature and all this kind of stuff. Now there's another story. There's another side to this story that you didn't even know at the time.
Yeah, and so as I get back to work. It's Memorial Day weekend, so we had Monday off. Tuesday, I'm at work, and I get a call. So I answer the call. Hello, and the guy answers, and he's like, "Hey, this is the trooper in Cantwell. Are you the person who shot the bear off near the highway this weekend?" I was like, "Oh, yep." And so I put my work down and I step outside.
Right.
And we talk for a while. He asks me for my side of the story because he got obviously a lot of calls. I think my wife said that like pretty much every single car that was there was on the phone with ADF&G. Their phones must have been ringing off the hook. Anyways, and so I tell him my side of the story, and he says, yeah, that mostly lines up with the first time I was told the story. And if that's true, you didn't do anything legally wrong. And we were talking a little bit more, and he said, I basically put that bear there for you. And I was like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, it was down by the Carlo Creek cabins on a moose kill, and it was harassing a bunch of the tourists there. And so I got a bunch of calls about it, and so I came and grabbed the moose kill and took it about a mile down the road, and that was across the road from where you shot the bear. And I went, oh, interesting. And he went, yeah, I suspected that I was going to have to probably kill that bear myself this year because it did not care. It was not frightened of people. It was completely fine being around people, and it was very, very close to viewing people as either just getting mad at somebody getting too close to it, or viewing people as a food source.
Yeah.
And he said, you kind of just did me a favor by killing it because it was not behaving as a grizzly should.
Right. So, from the perspective of you doing anything unethical, the only thing unethical would be you offended some people.
Yeah. Right. And gave maybe a bad name to hunting, which I would not want to do.
It's something there's a lot of people who I don't think really care about hunting until they see a dead animal or they watch an animal get killed.
Yeah.
And suddenly it hits them in the fields, and then it's like you say, your wife, she felt sorry for the bear. Obviously, she loves you enough to let you kill the bear, and I think my wife's the same way. She wants to go hunting with me and stuff, but she doesn't really have a desire to kill anything. It was funny when we were courting, dating. I was texting her about hunting all the time, right? Because that's what I was into, and I thought She would be. Why wouldn't somebody get into hunting?
Yeah, hunting's great.
And so she actually like did the work, and she went and got her hunter's ed, which is impressive. Like that's not an easy thing just to go do if you know nothing about it. But she went and got her hunter's ed, and she was like, because she was interested in me, of course, right? But and then she's gone hunting with me. I've gotten her hunting license and stuff, and she's had a good. She enjoys hunting. She's got to sit in a stand and watch a bear come in. That was a great experience for her because the bear comes in and then we hear another bear coming in like off in the woods, and the bear that's there, which is a sow, it's like their cubs that she just kicked off, and they're coming into the bait that they were feeding at her with. And so she's kicking and so they run off, and we hear like trees breaking and crashing, and it's all up by where the wheeler's parked.
Oh, yep.
And so we're sitting in the stand hearing all this, and she's like, are we going to be able to leave? I was like, yeah, I'm going to carry my rifle like this through the woods back to the wheeler, and we're going to keep an eye out, and I'm going to yell so they know where we're at. We had a great time. Yeah. She loved it, Yeah. And, well, then she's had one baby since then, and the next one's on the way. So
yeah.
So she's not had a chance to do that again. But
yeah, and I mean, my wife had a great time when she came up hunting on the 40 mile because she loved it because she got to see a bunch of caribou. Yeah. They were all cows, so I didn't shoot any. We had our dog with us, and dog was riding around in the back of the 4-wheeler looking super cute. It was a great time. And my wife mentioned to me, she was like, seeing you kill that bear was the first time I even like remotely considered being vegetarian.
Really?
Yeah. And she's really? Not, obviously.
Yeah,
but there's something very sobering about the fact that you have to kill an animal to be able to eat.
I remember feeling that as a little kid.
I still feel that. I mean, whenever I
as a little kid, I felt it. I've killed enough now. There's a slight thing for a moment, maybe. I don't really feel it anymore. I don't really like feeling it, so I'm good with it.
I try to cultivate it a little bit because I don't
empathize with your wife a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe.
It helps me empathize with my wife, and I think it's good to recognize
that you're taking a life.
And I think it's also very good to. One of the reasons I hunt is for ethical reasons because like cattle in a feedlot live horrible, horrible lives and die bad deaths.
Yeah. I don't really have a problem with that myself. I can say that. I think it's wonderful that if I want a beefsteak, I can walk in the store and buy a beefsteak.
And that is another aspect to it. I try to view things from.
But at the same time, what I'm doing as a hunter, first of all, I'm giving that animal a far better death than it would ever have in the wild.
Absolutely.
Right. And come to think of it, like those cattle may not have a great life in the feedlot, but the death they're getting there is much better death than it would ever have in the wild.
Yes, for certain.
It's quick. And when I hunt bears, I am saving quite a few
moose calves.
Moose, caribou, whatever for that season. Yeah, potentially sheep even. And when I kill I don't just I hunt for meat primarily. Mm-hmm. I also hunt for trophies. Mm-hmm. I like Field Ethos has a T-shirt or a hat. I think they might have a hat. They had a T-shirt for a while. I don't know if it's available anymore. It was Trophy Eater, which is great. Yeah. Like it's like there is nothing wrong. I don't see it as much as I used to, and it might still be out there. But this whole idea, I mean, this whole thing's kind of about the ethics of hunting here now. Yeah. This whole idea of not trophy hunting to make it okay makes it. Basically, you're saying at that point that there's something wrong with trophy hunting to begin with. Mm-hmm. In reality, trophy hunting is what's best most of the time for the animal population anyway. The reason why we have a 50-inch rule is a 50-inch plus moose rule is so that you're going to take out the bulls that are hogging all the cows and who are no longer fertile, right? And so you give the young bulls a chance to get their seed in. Mm-hmm. Right? The best genetics, the best, healthiest bulls are, right? Because, well, the poorer, the poorer health a bull is in, the less quality of genetics those calves are going to have. Yeah. Right? And same with sheep. At least that's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure how it's working out, but
it works great if there's a robust sheep population.
Certainly.
We're at a point now where people are shooting. We're having more too small sheep shot every year. Yes. Sheep that are in their prime. And, well, that's when you start to have, when perhaps then the hunting is having more of a harder hitting on the populations. But that's We did a whole couple episodes. And I don't know if you listened to those or not with Lou Bradley.
So.
Those
Yep.
that was awesome. Loved talking to that guy. He's 80 years old. He's
back
just
in the
as spry,
days.
if not more spry than I am. I mean, you shake his hand, and it's like shaking the hand of somebody who works out every day, which he probably does. And he is probably in the Wrangles right now, alone, backpacking, watching sheep.
Nice.
He was going to the Wrangles for 40 days shortly after we left there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. I want to go into the mountains when I'm 80 years old.
That is the dream. That is the dream to be doing
I would
that.
I would love one day to be able to, if I'm retired or not, just to be able to take a lot of time to go spend in the woods.
Just tell them I want to be you when I grow up.
Right. The mountains, wherever. Like I like the mountains. I love the mountains. Looking at sheep. A lot of times in the mountains you see sheep, you see caribou, you see bears, you see moose. Last time on my personal sheep hunt, I saw caribou, moose, and sheep. That's a great, nice variety of animals to see in 5 days.
Yeah, for sure.
When you see a moose at 5,000 feet, you kind of scratch your head. But
what's it doing up here?
This is where I had to hunt moose. I don't think I would hunt them.
Packing a moose out of there? Woof.
Oh my goodness.
Woof.
And I got back and I talked to a guy who, another guy, we had him on the show. I don't know if he talked about. I think he talked about that hunt, but he went sheep hunting around the same time that I had, maybe a little earlier in the season, different area, and he saw a moose at like 6,000 feet.
That's impressive.
It was a big bull too. The one I saw, I think, was close to 40 inches. I only saw it for a second, but like I just came around the edge, the side of a mountain up near the top. Just easier to go around the side. The same distance as going over the top. Just don't have to climb. So I was hiking around the edge of it, and I get around the edge, and I realize I'm going to have to kind of go up to kind of get to this plateau to go back down. So I'm start working my way back up, kind of that side hill and deal. And it's all rocks. And like as I come around, like there's a moose standing out there on the flat area, and I just saw him for a moment, and then he walked over the other side. Never saw him again.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then my way out of that sheep hunt was really cool because there were caribou everywhere.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And it was foggy. I mean, I came out in a snowstorm. I think I showed you some pictures.
Okay, yeah, you did.
And super foggy. And so, I mean, at times, I didn't have more than 50 feet of visibility. So I've never relied on a GPS more.
Yeah. Yikes.
Like, okay, the pin's there.
You're watching your little bubble
and so
move along.
I would walk 100 yards and check it again and say, okay, yeah, I went the right direction, or no, I went the wrong direction. Time to zigzag back this way. And then it was no like, because I probably could have walked out just about by eyesight after going in, but I was following all the tops and hiked in. And I don't know if you've ever done a hunt like that.
I've not done hunts like that. I've just hiked around like that.
Yeah.
Though.
Okay. And anyway, I worked my way out, and I got out of the higher stuff into the lower stuff where it's more flat, bigger, wider, flat saddles between the high points, and started seeing caribou and like walking within 100 yards of them because it was so foggy they couldn't see me. Like they didn't know what I was, And
That's
so like,
cool.
and then I'd walk up and they'd jump up and run 100 yards. And they'd sit there, and like maybe lay back down or stand there for a while until I get closer. And then they would run again. And then it kind of lifted a little, or got a little lower, and I got into the middle of one of these saddles, and they're just caribou running. Like it was like I couldn't see the whole caribou. I could just see the shapes running around. It was awesome.
Super
and
neat.
I tried to take pictures. It just wasn't the same.
It doesn't convey.
It's saw some nice bulls too.
Yeah.
Probably could have shot one. I can't remember if the season was open there or not, but
generally
I wasn't wanting to pack it out.
If it was in the Brooks, it would have been open.
But I did not want to pack a caribou. I already packed one caribou out that season.
Oh yeah,
for
the hunter.
For a hunter, and I was very happy to do that. I got tipped very well, but
for yourself, not so much.
For myself, I'm like, I've done it once. I'm good, and at least that one was pretty much all down because it was way up high and then down pretty steep, and then down a creek to an airstrip. So it wasn't that big of a deal, except for the last mile was through swamp. But I could have hiked around it, but that would have been an extra like half mile. And with 100 pounds on your back, it's not...
Side hilling especially,
it wasn't really my desire to hike around when I could just walk through a foot of swamp. And I already had wet feet, so whatever. But yeah, it was great. So you've got a sheep hunt planned this fall?
Yep.
Anything crazy? You gonna hike in?
From the spot it's at, you can ride a 4-wheeler actually
Okay.
a ways up the mountain before you hop off and hike your way back.
Is that your plan then?
Back on it. That's the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know how far of a hike you're looking at? You're gonna hike and camp on the way?
Hike and camp. I mean, it'll be like a 7 or 8 day hunt.
Okay.
And as far as we need to go.
Okay. Yeah. You just keep looking, keep moving. What you got? You made any gear purchases for the hunt?
Nothing fancy. A lot of Amazon purchases, like a no-name pack frame. I'm going to use a pack frame because I've got an ultralight hiking pack, but it's not like a hunting pack.
So you're really pinching your pennies for that.
Yeah, that's going to be a very budget.
You went with
hunt.
a no-name pack frame.
Yeah, no name. I mean, I've used it for carrying stuff around. And
how much weight have you put in it? Out of curiosity.
I put my motor on it for my boat.
I don't know.
It weighs like 130 pounds.
Okay.
And
seemed to carry all right.
Carried it all right.
How far did you carry it?
Not super
Up
far.
and down the driveway.
Yeah, not super far. I'm trying to rig out for my moose hunt this year. I'm gonna be hiking down a ways off the road with my boat motor and my boat and everything into a river to run a ways out. So I'm trying to figure out the best situation. I might have to make some modifications.
Okay. I would recommend for a sheep hunt where you're going to be hiking potentially 5 to 10 miles a day, and uphill. Getting some sandbags and putting like 80 pounds in there.
Mm-hmm. And like going on like an actual hike.
Even if you just hike a couple miles on the road, up a hill a little bit, it'll really help you to know what that pack's going to do. Because once it settles in after a while, and I mean, I have a pack frame. It's actually a pretty nice, decently expensive pack frame that I bought quite a few years ago. Thinking if I ever go to sheep hunt, I'll take this one. It's an Eberly stock F1 mainframe. Okay, I like it. But it kind of sucks. Yeah. Compared to, I've never carried a Stone Glacier. I have an initial Ascent that I used last fall. And from like the Eberly stock, it's got a lot of good reviews. A lot of guys seem to like it. $250, I think, for the frame. And I have a backpack that like zips into it, and then I can pull the pack off and put stuff between it. And it's not like an expedition pack, but I use it for bear baiting mostly. But I probably had 120 pounds on it the other day. Hiking a quarter mile in. Not a problem. After you put 80 pounds on and you hike 11 miles, 120 pounds for a quarter mile, no big deal. Yeah. No big deal at all. And, but it just, the problem that I have heard a lot of, experienced myself somewhat, is with a lot of the lesser packs in general. Pack frames, and some pack frames do fine. A lot of people really like the Kelty one. You can get a Sportsman's for like $150 or something. Okay, right. Is they might carry up to say 50 or 60 pounds, all right. But as soon as you hit that 80 pounds, 100 pounds, your straps and your hip belt, like that hip belt just doesn't. And that's the problem. And that's the problem with that Eberly stock is the hip belt loosens up easily. At quarter mile, I'm tightening it all the time. That's why it's my bear bait pack frame. It might be a $250 pack frame, but it's my bear bait pack frame. Righto. You're welcome to give it a shot too if you want to try it out. I'd let you use it this fall. I'd love to try it. But I don't have a pack for it. But you can put straps on it and put a dry bag.
That's my plan for this one. So
and it is a nice light pack frame. It's like 4 pounds.
So, okay, yeah, it's lighter than this one.
For a pack frame, I mean. Usually a frame in a pack is about 4 pounds. I've never carried like a Stone or not a Kelty. What's the Kifaru? Some guys were in the Mystery Ranch. I looked at some of the Mystery Ranch Sportsman's had on sale last fall, just to add to the arsenal. But none of them were big enough that I felt like it was worth purchasing. Right. Having a very the one I have is 8,000 cubic inch.
Okay, right.
Or liters. Well, however they measure them, I don't remember, but not liters, it's cubic inches, yeah. Okay, 8,000 cubic inches, plus the lid, which is like another 300. Plus I actually bought another attachment for it that's another 300 because you're surprised at how fast you fill all that up.
Yeah, I know.
But what tent you bringing?
Probably going to do essentially what you did, plus an old like army surplus bivy, like waterproof bivy bag around my sleeping bag.
Okay, that's a good idea. You have some kind of ground cloth you're planning on using?
Probably just the bivy bag.
I didn't tell you what I use for a ground cloth, did I?
No, you didn't.
You're going to like this. It's a great option. It didn't cost me a dime. I walked into a shop
Uh-huh.
that you know of, and I cut a piece of the paper they use to go between their metal panels off the roll.
Nice. That's super
It worked
smart.
really well.
That sounds
It's kind of heavy,
like an excellent
but
idea.
It worked really well. It's basically a better version of Tyvek,
Yeah.
right? Because you can go buy the Tyvek ground
Mhm.
cloths, right? It's stronger than that stuff is.
Yeah. That's a super great idea. I'll probably do that. The bivy bag itself is also waterproof, so I don't know.
Okay.
My plan is, because we're going to do a weekend scout. Yeah. A weekend scout trip up there
Mm-hmm.
before we go for real, and so I'll be sort of mocking up my setup and
Get an idea what you're
testing
gonna
it.
Well, as long as you're early enough in the season, it won't be too big of a deal. That's
Yeah.
one thing I ran into is I did it kind of late in the season. I mean, I did it really late in the season. I think my last day in there was the last day of the season for
Okay.
sheep. So it was
Right.
like September 20th.
Okay, yeah. So that would be pretty late. We're
Really
not gonna
late.
be in there.
And yeah, ice storms and fog and snow. And I went in, it was sunny. Coming out, it wasn't.
Yeah, no.
Got all socked in and everything. What tarp do you have?
I'm gonna get the one that
You're
you
gonna buy the
were
one I have.
running.
Yeah. I think for the money, I don't think you can beat it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nicer stuff for a lot more money. Dalton bought a Hilleberg tarp, but that's $300.
Yeah. My dad's got a Hilleberg tent, and that's what he'll
Okay.
probably be running.
Does he
in.
have a solo?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it it's got the two poles across the top?
Yes.
And the poles go on top of the fly and
Yes.
the tent inside. Yeah. I'd say I spent like a dozen nights in one last fall with the guide down that guided hunt. Loved that thing. $1,000 tent though.
They're super nice tents.
Also weighs 5 pounds.
Yeah. That's one of the other downsides.
I'm in a tent position of, I talked about this on the podcast a while ago, and a guy we know at Sportsman's, he heard the podcast and was like, he's used every piece of gear you can imagine pretty much. And so he goes, I heard you talking about tents. This one's good. This one's good. This one with this technology, you know. And so I kind of went off of that, and I bought the new Big Agnes Copper Spur 3 Limited. It's kind of big, but it weighs just over 3 pounds. It's a 3-man.
For
Dual vestibules.
that sounds like an excellent choice. For having the space for 3 pounds, that sounds like the way to go.
And so I'm in a situation with it where $650 I think, where I want to, I'll take it this fall if I go solo. I didn't buy it for solo. I bought it, and then now Dalton may or may not make it on the hunt. I'm planning for this fall, but I'll take it because I bought it. Big Agnes also makes the, and I may even buy it between now and then, depending. But they make the Fly Creek UL1, which is 2 pounds. It's a 2-pound single man tent. Hard to beat.
Yeah.
And from everything I've seen from talking to the same guy at Sportsman's, he said it's a great tent as well. It's not great with wind coming down on top of it, though there are some ways to mitigate that. Same with the one I bought. The Hubba Hubba 2-man from MSR is super popular. Dalton has one. I almost bought one of those, but I like the tarp. It was great. I don't ever plan on doing it again.
Yeah.
I don't need to, you know.
Yeah, not that you have the option.
And I'll always bring a tarp with me is my plan. So the tarp is a backup shelter now.
For sure.
I've done it. Spent 5 nights in it. Or I don't remember. It was a 5-day hunt, so 4 nights maybe. But I've done it. Spent enough time in it to know how to do it to make it work. It
Worked,
just
but
barely
wasn't
fits
great.
if you lay at an angle, you know, and then you can stick your pack next to you. And I had my pack in the tent with me. I was able to do that. But sleeping bag?
I've got a Marmot something or another. It's rated to 20 degrees.
Okay.
It's synthetic.
Yeah.
I've got like a whole.
Is it that Nano Wave?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
My dad and I did started a through hike of the Long Trail in Vermont when I
Okay.
was like 14. So I've got a bunch of gear that I used from ultralight backpacking. That I'll probably just be.
So you were an ultralight backpacker at one point.
When I was younger, yes.
Okay. I have recently started watching YouTube videos about ultralight backpackers. Blew my mind
Yeah.
on how little those guys go with to save such a small amount of weight.
Yeah, we used hammocks. We didn't even use tents because
Well, fair weather, you can.
I mean, it was bad weather. It was really, really bad weather. But we had trees. You don't really have trees when you're sheep hunting.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. A lot of these guys are doing this minimal thing, and they're great as long as it's fair weather. And then the weather goes bad, and then they're suffering.
Yeah,
and they're not having fun.
We were not having fun.
So what's really funny is I started watching these videos, right? And first one I watched, and the guy's like, so, I tried to keep my pack under 10 pounds, and my eyes kind of like, what? Now, I've come to understand that means base weight. That doesn't mean food, too. But that's base weight. Base weight of 10 pounds, not counting your food.
Yeah, food and water don't count.
And, but still, 10 pounds. Okay. And he's talking about the fact that how, like, even in, like, but then if the weather goes just a little bit cold or something like that, then he's just miserable, not having a good time. So he sacrificed. He brought a chair. He upped his stove. And he brought a nicer tent. It gained him 3 pounds. He's 13 pounds now. But he's more comfortable.
I don't know how he'll make it.
I don't mean to mock. I'm impressed with the willingness to push like that. Mm-hmm. I'm in a place where last time I went in, I was 80 plus pounds with water. It's a different world.
Yeah.
In both in weather and in what we're doing, what the purpose is. He's out there to be out there.
Yeah.
I'm out there to be out there, but I'm also out there with a goal. Yeah. I have to have a goal.
Your goal is to carry even more weight back.
Yeah, right. Well, I carried 10 liters of water going in. Mm-hmm. I then found water once I got almost all the way in there. Yeah. But I didn't know, but yeah, it's 20 pounds.
Yeah.
It's 2.2 pounds per liter of water. That adds up quick.
Yep, sure does.
And that was just enough water for my whole trip because I didn't know about water. And I also discovered once I got in there, like if I could have left my gear on top and just hiked down and filled up water at the bottom and then carried water while I was in there. But what I started watching a bunch of different guys. Some of them I can't stand. They just aren't my type, right? They start talking and it's like, all right, well, I can't listen to this guy talk. He doesn't sound like a man. And it's not because he's not. He's just different kind of.
Just a whole different vibe.
It's exactly the word for it. And I'm watching these videos. I'm learning a few things, looking up a few pieces of equipment and whatnot. Which was the biggest thing. I was like, this is actually like a treasure trove. Trying to find a hunter who's used a particular tent is almost impossible on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm watching these guys and somebody who's used like every tent in the book. And it's like, oh, cool. Every sleeping pad. Like top 10 sleeping pads. I've slept on them all for 10 nights each.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this guy's actually done some work. Mm-hmm. He knows, and he's got all these tests he did on them. And I know a sleeping pad I want to buy. I have one. Not a huge fan of it. And then I'm watching all these. And then a video pops up. Brian Call. If you're familiar with him at all.
I think
with
so.
Gritty, Brian Call. You'd like his stuff. He's a backpack bear hunter.
Okay, nice.
Dalton likes to say he goes sheep hunting for bears.
Nice.
He does what we would consider
hunt.
A sheep style hunt. He hikes way back into the backcountry with a really heavy pack to shoot bears and hike them back in the state, in the lower 48. He's done it some up here. Mm-hmm. A little different what he's done up here. But I've started watching one of his videos. He's sponsored by the Initial Ascent packs. Mm-hmm. And because he likes the packs. And so he's talking to the Initial Ascent guys, and it says something about, backpacking and ultralight or whatever. I'm like, oh, cool. So I start listening to this podcast he does. And he starts out by saying, so I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube about these ultralight backpackers, and it's a whole different world. And I'm thinking,
yeah,
sounds familiar.
That experience.
Yeah. So anyway, I started watching it, and he's starting to name some of the gear that I've found, and I learned some stuff from him too. And one of the things, I'm just been obsessing about sheep hunting, so it's great to talk about it with somebody. And we pass each other at work, but when you're on the clock, you can't really.
Yeah, you can't really chat for an hour about sheeps.
Right. So he goes in. He starts going into one. He talked about base weight, and that helped me actually understand some of that stuff a little bit more. And he said his base weight is about 30. I think he said between 30 and 35 pounds, and that's not counting rifle and tripod and like optics and food. But that's a pretty good. He said that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think it is. And I haven't really done the numbers on what my base weight would be with the gear that I have, but I've been doing a lot of research on gear to figure out where I can. I was talking to someone about that before before we started the show, what I can cut to really start saving some pounds.
Yeah.
Because I don't see any reason to not get my base weight down. Right. If I can, especially if I can do it without sacrificing comfort.
Yeah.
Right. And so start with a 3-man tent. It's still lighter than a Hilleberg Solo. But, I'm right now we're using the Peak 44 tripod that I'm not a huge fan of. It's not a bad tripod. I don't really recommend it. I don't mind it. It has a good purpose, but it's not a great backpacking tripod in my opinion.
Yeah.
Asiac, Tricer, either one of them would be a better choice. Both lighter weight and the head on this one's not bad, but it's decent. I think it's 3 to 4 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, it extends up full height, but you don't really need that on a sheep hunt. And I'm looking at the Asiac, whatever their latest one is. It's a backcountry. The ball is integrated into the top of the tripod, like the whole, like it's like the ball and your Arca adapter. There's no like twist rod or anything. It's just a ring that you spin. That I got my hands on one down in Barney's Sports Chalet last in March, and I don't think you want to put like a real heavy spotter on it, but it weighs, I believe it's 20 ounces.
Oh, that's really good.
So I've got my eye on the Vortex, the new Vortex. What's the new? They've got the new spotters they came out with a year or two ago.
Wouldn't know.
So it's an upgraded lineup of their top range, and I'm looking at I think it's like the 33 to 59, or 33 to 59 by, I don't remember, something like that. It's about $1,000, but it's a super clean, super clear glass, and it's the smaller end of the spotters, which saves weight. I'm hoping to combine that with the telephoto lens on my phone and a good digiscope to hopefully make up for that. The new Samsungs have the AI built into their cameras, so you can zoom in 100x, and it uses the AI to clarify the picture.
Right. Oh, nice. That's super
so
cool.
I think with sheep, there might be a really good application for that.
Just make sure it doesn't like curl their horns a little more.
Oh no, I'm not. No, the whole purpose of even carrying a heavier, nicer spotter, sheep hunting, isn't to decide if you're going to shoot a sheep from another mile away. It's to decide if you're going to get closer. It's going to save you time and miles if the sheep's just not worth looking at. And if I can tell that, I'm trying to gain that advantage with technology, really, over weight. Last year, I carried a Miopta S2. Okay, it's pretty similar to Swarovski, 20 to 80 by 20 to 60 by 80, 20 to 70 by 80, something like that. It's like a 5-pound spotter.
Yeah. I think
combined with my 3 or 4 pound.
Yeah, right. I think
tripod.
that's similar to the one my dad's got, a Swaro, and it's probably
pretty big.
5 or 6.
It's a standard size, but it's a bigger.
Dense.
It's not like there's the Swaro, huge Swaros, 120 millimeter lens. Like not a sheep hunter's scope. I've heard of people carrying them. I've also heard of people carrying the 18x binoculars. And putting them on a tripod.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that seems difficult to use.
Not really freehanding them, but running them on a tripod.
Right.
Even I've seen guys run binos on a tripod, and it's actually pretty effective. So I'll probably get a bino mount for my tripod and stuff too, just to try it out. It's amazing when you stabilize your glass how good it is. There's guys carrying those SIG stabilizing binos too. The 16x.
I've heard of those.
You haven't heard of them? Oh, they're sweet. They're an interesting design, but they're about the size of this. Kind of the shape too, actually, of this recorder here. And you've got the main body of them, which is pretty narrow, about like that, and maybe that long. And then the eyepieces kind of come out on the sides, on the front, and they're basically they digitally stabilize your picture.
Interesting.
And they're 16x.
A monocular up front, like a.
I believe it's two lenses up front. Yeah. But with the stabilization, and they've got like a second or third version of mount now that's a lot better even than the first. Like the first wasn't great in the dark. If it was a little darker, it wasn't good. I've heard some really good stuff about that set of binoculars. They're not crazy expensive, but I say not crazy expensive. I think they're $600-700 somewhere in that range.
That's not.
They might be $8 or $9. I don't remember. They might be $1,200. I can't remember. I think it's not expensive, and then. But I'm happy with what I have for binos. But what do you have for binos?
Some Vortex Diamondback. I couldn't
10 by
tell you
42s. That's pretty standard.
I think they're a little bit larger.
like a little more zoom or larger objective?
Larger objective.
52s maybe?
I think they're
Or 50?
52s. 50s or 52s. They're a gift.
Okay.
And they work.
If you got them, you got them.
They work well. They work pretty well. So
I've got a pair of Leupold, what's the BX2s.
Mhm.
I highly recommend the BX2s for the price range.
Yeah.
Can't beat them. They're the 10x52s or
Mhm.
10x50s, whatever they are. That's what I used for a while before I got the Leicas.
yeah, right.
Any other pieces of gear I've been asking about stuff I'm curious about because it's what I'm looking at right now. But
I mean, I'll be taking my T3X N7 Rem mag.
just the one you just bought?
Yep, the one I just bought and the one I shot the bear with.
What ammo?
Not sure about for sheep. With the bear, I was using TTSX,
The Barnes.
just the factory Barnes load. I'm thinking maybe AccuBonds or partitions for sheep, just because I'll probably be pushing out a little bit further. And I've heard some stories from my dad's friend who's done a lot of sheep hunting about issues he's had with TTSXs.
They don't open at
not opening at sheep.
You basically want to keep a minimum
Style
of 2,000
ranges.
feet per second.
He's had a pencil right through sheep. I mean, he's an excellent shot. He's shot sheep at like 1,200 yards, and with the TTSXs,
No, you wouldn't.
just penciled right through.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
consider
think
like
I
an
would-
ELDX, like a cup and core?
Yes, something similar, but I bonded just because
It's a sheep,
if
though.
if
It's
we
just
are,
a sheep.
it is just a sheep. But I wouldn't want to damage a bunch of meat if we did end up shooting it close.
I don't think an ELDX you'd have a major issue. I mean, a
No.
bonded, you might have just as much damage. I mean, you can have a lot. Personally, if it was me doing something like that, I'd probably go with an ELDX because of your BC
Righto.
advantage. However, with the an ABLR, if you can get your hands on them, if you're familiar with the ABLRs,
I don't think so.
Acumon long range.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. I didn't.
Yeah,
know
something like that
acronym.
would get you a good BC, and I think they expand down to like 1,300 feet per second or something crazy.
Okay, that'd be really good.
But I've never hunted with them personally. They're supposed to be pretty good.
And sheep aren't difficult to take down.
No, they're not at all.
They're not
So I
super
mean, some guys really like the match bullets. I still don't think I'd hunt sheep with a match.
I'm not a big fan of match.
But it's just too many chances for a mistake. And
Yeah.
now everything I do is with hammers, pretty much. If I have time to load for it, the
Yeah.
only thing I haven't loaded for that I have right now with my hammers that I hunt with, I haven't hunted with it yet, is my 375. But
Yeah, I'm a big fan of monometal style bullets for everything other than like sheep.
well, let's see. That's with bars. I agree. I think with a hammer you'd be fine.
Mhm.
Hammers open up just fine at slow at rated velocities. They have a 1,700 feet per second rated velocity, which is actually lower than a standard AccuBond rated velocity.
Yeah.
So
yeah, probably just the Take-A for rifle.
what scope do you have?
Right now I've got a Nikon Pro Staff. They don't even make them anymore.
That might be a good thing.
Yeah, it's an excellent scope.
Okay.
It's when they made them, you could get them for like $150, and the glass quality on them is that of like a $600-700 scope. Like they're
Really?
punching way above their weight class.
Huh.
It's not. It's
I've
nothing.
heard some good stuff about the Nikon Pro staffs.
It's nothing super fancy. It's just a
Right.
standard crosshair reticle. Nothing.
Just a duplex.
Just a duplex. That's what I meant. Standard duplex reticle. Second focal plane. So you can't really even use the magnifier to help range it or anything. Cause
Right. Well, if you don't have any
tick marks, but
yeah.
I mean, with the duplex, it does go from thick, and then it steps.
Oh,
there's
and you
a
have those
shoulder to get where it thin. Shoulder where it gets thin. So with a second focal plane, you could or first focal plane, you could use that to figure out your MOA.
I have that Redfield I have has that, and then it also has it has you got your center regular duplex, and you've got a dot, and you've got the post.
Okay, yep.
And basically with when I was shooting that on my 300 short mag, your regular duplex center was 100 yards, the dot was 200, the post was 300.
Nice.
Something like that, yeah. If you're looking at upgrading your scope, I really like for price the Leupold VX3. What do I have? It's the 3.5 to 10 by 42 or whatever, and I think it's just got a 1-inch tube, but they've sailed it with the CDS dial, and for the money, you can't beat it. And yeah,
that one that I sent you is, I think, the one that I'm gonna upgrade to. I'm not sure if I'll upgrade in time for the sheep hunt.
Which one did you send me?
It's a Burris.
Oh, that's right. You're talking about the Burris.
Yeah. So it with set up so that you can just dial your range and it automatically.
They're talking about
sets
passing laws against those for hunting.
They are talking about that. I think that is silly. I think it makes it more.
So I have two takes.
Yeah.
I can look at it from two angles. One angle is, okay, yeah, I can see where that could be an issue. Actually, I see the positives of passing a law against them for hunting from two angles. One angle is basically, yes, it's increased technology capability. And so basically the rules are, they just try to keep everything the way it is, right? Anything that gives anybody an extra advantage, that they just, all right, no drones, no cell cameras. Like, you can use cameras, no cell cameras, right? Although the cell camera thing doesn't really make sense up here. Most places don't have cell service anyway.
Yeah.
And if it does, you're not going to use that to go shoot an animal right away. It's just going to save a little bit of gas money.
Yeah.
Which would be nice. But with the scopes, it's more of a, I don't know if it was me in your position, I'd probably buy one anyway. The law's not going to get passed by the sheep season. And and so you could get a chance to use it, and then you can always put it on something else,
Yeah, and this functions without a battery.
Oh, cool.
So you can set it. You have to set it when it has a battery in it.
Okay.
But once it's set, pull the battery out. Still works. You just dial your turret.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And so my granddad, I've used his. He's got a Burris Illuminator, and so that's the range finding scope that automatically illuminates the dot.
Okay.
This one's a lower tech version of that. So you dial it in for your rifle, and then you can just use whatever turret it is. You dial it, and on screen, if it has the battery in it, if you're looking through the scope, it'll show you what yardage you're going to be at.
Okay.
If it isn't, you just use little turret markers.
Just same way you would.
Yeah,
okay.
same way you would.
So that might not get outlawed.
Just pull the battery out.
The eliminator. What makes sense about the law? There's the one thing. That's one aspect. The other aspect for me with something like the eliminator is you will have a problem with people who take their gun, shoot 3 shots, think it's sighted in, and just go shoot, and they really never know. They never shoot long. You have the argument from the other guy, say, well, you should never be shooting that range if you haven't shot your gun anyway. Yeah, but there's not very many people that are going to take a $500 scope like that Leupold,
No,
and then try to shoot 600-700 yards with it. The scope's capable, but it takes a shooter
I
that can do it.
suspect that there are a lot of people who would try it.
With the eliminator.
With a Leupold. Seeing
Yes,
specifically like 40-mile hunt.
but I feel
style
like,
people.
yeah, that's a whole other story. But I feel with like the Burris Illuminator, it's going to give people a lot of confidence that
Yes.
doesn't necessarily rightfully exist. So I kind of get why. I don't see ever using one for hunting. I like the math, right? I like doing the work. I've got the apps on my phone, and I have Straylock. Okay, you can't get Straylock anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was sanctioned
I didn't know it
because of the war.
Okay, right.
It's made by a Russian guy, and I love it. It's great, but it just transfers from phone to phone to phone because you can no longer. Well, actually, I found a copy of it on the dark web.
Nice,
but it's not easy to install. It's usable, but it is a really cool option, and being able to get on there, input my data, shoot my rifle, corroborate that data. I really like that part of it. So I can understand what you're doing. Using the scope. I don't have anything against anybody using it as long as there's not a law. I don't have anything against it.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a dog in the fight, honestly.
Yeah. I think that probably somebody, and I might just be reading people wrong, as I tend to do, apparently, embarrassingly. But I think that probably the type of person who would be shooting 3 shots at 100 or 200 yards, going out and being like, okay, there's a sheep or there's an animal at 800, and my scope says that this dot's the one. I'm going to go for it. I think that would be similar to the type of person who would go out there with a $400 Vortex and say, I'm looking at the back of the box, and it says it's going to have a 30-inch drop at 400 yards, and this is 600 yards, so we'll say 70-inch drop.
Yeah.
I think
you got a point.
And I think that if they have an eliminator and if it's functioning properly, they have a higher chance of making
wounding
it. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a good point.
That's kind of where I look at it. Like, they're going to get a little closer.
They're going to get close enough to wound it, but not necessarily enough to actually
that's
make an
kind of
ethical kill. That's true.
Right. Like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. If they outlaw it, I'm not going to be mad. If they don't, I don't think I'll really be upset.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the best I can to be as ethical of a hunter as I can.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I think that's why I would like. That's why I think that if people made good decisions, I think it would be a good thing to have.
Yeah. No, I understand that for sure.
If you could rely on humans to make good decisions, I think that'd be an excellent thing to have.
Right.
You can't, so you have to.
Their laws exist for a reason. I don't always agree with them. But anything else? Yeah, you want to add any other hunts planned? Just life in Alaska. Keep trying to kill and provide meat.
Keep trying to fill the freezer.
Okay.
Keeps getting emptier.
Keep looking for trophies.
Yep.
There's kind of a there's kind of a growing up here. There's kind of, you just want to kill something. You don't really care that it's that big. Yeah, sure, you want to. You dream about it, but you don't like really target it. And then you get some kills, and, and it may not be big stuff. It might be a 6-foot grizzly bear
off the side of the road.
Yeah, but now you've got something under your belt. Now, I would assume you're going to continue some bear hunting this spring. Yeah, for some black bears, maybe.
Maybe for some black bears, we'll see.
Okay.
Freezer's pretty full.
Well, I know somebody can help you out with that.
Definitely in the fall though for moose hunting, and if I see a bear, I'm gonna be shooting it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. It takes even if you continued bear hunting, even if you're like, I still want a black bear. I want to get a black bear, which I could understand why you would.
Yeah.
You've still got that. I've got something in the freezer. I've drawn blood. It just takes the pressure off. You feel more confident in yourself.
It does.
It helps you to make better decisions when you're hunting.
Yeah.
In this case, I may have done the exact same thing you did. Now I don't think I will.
I certainly won't, because that was my first bear.
Yeah.
And unless that was a Kodiak size grizzly bear,
right?
I'm gonna take a couple pictures, and
hope everybody drives
move on
away
with my life.
I've heard one story similar, except they didn't shoot the bear, of somebody I knew was bow hunting on the Hall Road, and they saw a really nice grizzly, and there was a bunch of tourists watching the bear, and I believe this may be a couple stories I'm mixing together. I think there actually is a couple where there was actually one guy who, one story I heard was a guy was doing a stalk on the grizzly, crawling through the grass with his bow, the whole thing, and there was a bunch of Japanese tourists watching him, and the Japanese love the American gun lore. It's funny because there's the nerds in our culture are infatuated with the Japanese, ridiculously so, right?
Yeah.
It seems to be something
similar the other.
There's the other way around with the gun culture in the Old West and stuff. I actually heard a story of a guy who was there's a bunch of Japanese tech guys that had a lot of money and stuff that came over. And at the time, this guy owned Alaska Aero Fuel, and so he was hosting them or whatever. And they were like, I want to shoot 44 Magnum. They'd been watching Dirty Harry.
Oh, yeah.
So
Nice.
they wanted to shoot a 44 Magnum.
Excellent.
And they were all obsessed with that. So it was that kind of situation. They weren't even upset that the hunter was there hunting the bear. But the hunter made the decision to not do it because he felt like he didn't want there to be a conflict. Also, I don't think a lot of people, at least being 10, 15, 20 years ago, I don't think the realization that it's actually completely legal to do that and illegal for them to harass the game was as commonly understood of a law as it is now. Now it's really well known because, we deal with it more often than we did. There's just more
written
people.
in the regs, everything.
Right. Yeah, you can't. One hunter can't harass another hunter's game, much less somebody who's not a hunter. Yeah. Right. You can't even mess with somebody's traps. Right. You can't touch them if they're on public land.
Yeah.
But
yeah, wouldn't do it again. If by some weird chance any of the people who were there watch this, sorry.
Sorry for ruining your day.
I wasn't trying to ruin your vacation.
Do you Do you regret it?
I don't regret it.
Good.
No,
Good.
I'm happy. I'm happy with the bear.
6 foot's not bad.
6 foot's
What
not
you
bad.
originally texted me was a lot smaller than that. And that
It was
just
a bad
guess.
angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad angle that the photo was taken.
Well, the
from.
photo didn't look terribly small, but you
Okay.
texted me like that. You thought it was like maybe 5 feet.
Oh yeah. I was definitely underestimating it.
That's fine. No, I've told the story on here. That big bear I shot last year, that 7 foot 2.5. You know, got the half-inch matters.
Yeah.
And I shot it, and I was sitting in the tree stand, and I was like, I knew it was a big bear. I really hadn't considered that it was a huge bear. It was a big bear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I texted Dalton with the inReach because he was on his bait.
Mm-hmm.
And I texted him, shot a bear all of 6 foot. And I started skinning it. And I was like, because the one I had shot about a month before that was also was a 6 footer.
Mm-hmm.
And I started skinning it and was like, after spending a few moments like arranging it for a picture and stuff, I was like, you got that expectations you've learned to keep low. Like, no, this is a trophy.
Yeah.
This is a serious like bear of a lifetime here. May never shoot one that big again.
Yeah.
I'll still hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But an interior 7 foot black bear is.
That's pretty impressive.
I mean, even for coastal, that's a big bear.
Yeah.
So. But they only had 2 pounds of fat on him.
That's really odd. It was fall? No, it was
spring.
bear baiting, so it was spring.
It was spring. That's why he only had 2 pounds of fat on him.
Yeah.
But
I was like,
imagine how fat he would have been in the fall.
Yeah. About 100 pounds heavier.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I knew somebody that shot a bear last fall who, I think they got about 40 pounds of meat off of it. It wasn't a big bear, it was maybe 5 feet. 40 pounds of meat, and they got 40 pounds of fat.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
They pack it away.
Yeah, they do. But all right, well, good talking at you. Thanks for coming on the
Nice
show.
talking to you too. No worries.
Everybody, check out Initial Ascent backpacks, hammer bullets. I don't know if we talked. Stealthy Hunter. Still got Stealthy Hunter glassing pad. I saw one sitting around. There's one sitting over there. And he's got some great products. I use a Stealthy Hunter glassing pad when I go into my tree stand, and my tree stand's wet, so I have a dry butt when I sit there for a while.
Nice.
Also works on a lawn chair. He's got some great products. Check him out. Yeah, we don't ask for any other way to support the show right now, but to check those guys out, like, subscribe, comment, share it with a friend. See you 2 weeks from now.